Hello everyone, it is I, the Golden Scouta, bringing you an anime video. Yu Yu Hakusho? What if Yu Yu Hakusho was remade? A lot of people have been covering about why it shouldn't be remade, but if it was, how should it be remade? And with me today, I have Dragon Ball Dad. How are you doing, man?
It's brilliant to be back. It's been such a long time, but covering one of our favourite animes, and I cannot complain about this. And it was you who got me into Yu Yu Hakusho because I watched the Hunter x Hunter remake, and you said that I should try this out. So that kind of poetically tells you the benefits of a remake because it really worked for Hunter x Hunter, and them having the same mangaka brings up this ideal discussion about his other baby Yu Yu Hakusho.
Yep. And it's amazing too, since it's fresh in your mind, so you're going to be able to bring a crazy new perspective, hopefully. Not crazy, but a unique perspective.
Hopefully, I'll do my best.
Yeah, it's crazy though. The last time we collaborated, it's been 4 years, so some of you audience members, if you were in high school or in university, some of you have graduated. But let's get on to the topic of discussion. So, the first thing that we have to talk about is the opening, Smile Bomb. Do you think that that should be remade, or do you think that they should choose a different song, or what do you think?
This is so hard because it's one of the best openings of all time, and I don't feel like it's dated, but that might be my age showing. You know what I mean? Like the next generation might prefer something different, and I suppose if it was a good song and it hit the right notes, it could work. But I would keep it in some sort of way. Maybe have it play at the end credits instead, for that nostalgia for us, and give us something new at the start. I think that could work really well.
Yeah, same here. Like, one of the things, too, I think would actually work for the best of both worlds is if you were to do Smile Bomb, remake it, and then maybe have a second opening, which usually goes kind of like how most shonen anime... I mean, we can't really compose anything, but I'm sure it would go kind of like how a lot of anime goes, like with, like, the world is my oyster, today's a wonderful day. With my friends we can do anything. Let's go fight the enemy.
I'm sold. That's really good, and it does work with most animes. It's very kind of rare for one to keep the same opening all the way through. And with Yu actually they just changed the animation, right? Didn't they? They just kept the same song and then give us some new footage. So I suppose they could do it like exactly like you say, have two songs. And it brings up like the question for me about the animation of the anime itself, because a lot of people really love the original animation, and I'm one of those people, but it is very much a thing of its time. When you watch the most recent OVA, the Here and Koama backstory one, with the modern animation, I think that style of animation would really move the series forward. Would you go for a new animation style as well?
I mean, I think that if they were to take the animation from the OVAs, I think that that would be perfect. There's a particular scene I'll probably put on screen right now where Kurama uses the Rose Whip, and I thought it looked phenomenal. But, one of the things, too, is whenever you go back and rewatch this series, there's a lot of stuff that really is a product of its time. Like, there'll be, like, just shots that are a little bit too long that are kind of awkward, like Kuwabara fighting like that Catman in the first arc, where the Catman's like, Kuwabara, you're going to die. Are you ready to die? And then it goes on the commercial break, and then they come back, and he's still laughing like, time to die. So I think if they were to take out some of those like cringy bits, I think that it would really benefit the show if they were to remake it, and they can actually make it to where they could add new stuff, maybe throw us a little bit of curveballs so that way, I don't know. Because like with Hunter x Hunter, like 1999, I like how they did a lot of kind of like their own liberties, like especially with the Hunter exam, like how like there's a phase in there like where they're like working to operate like a pirate ship or something, and they all have to work together, and then in the next phase, like they're all having to fight each other again. So I think that it would really be cool if there was stuff like that.
Yeah, it'd be good to add additions. A lot of people criticise like the pacing of the first few episodes. I really didn't have that sort of an issue with it, but I feel they could add things to it, like we saw with the OVAs, like the additions they make to the story would really work in the series. And I would say if they could get Togashi involved in some way, I know his health is the reason that Yu Yu Hakusho ended so like abruptly and why Hunter x Hunter's never worked, but he could do something like what Toriyama does with Dragon Ball Super and just add like notes and additions that he wants to the series. So I think it would be good if they could get him involved in some small way that protected his health and sort of kept it as all canon if they do add additions to the story.
Oh yeah, a blessed Togashi's heart though. I mean, that guy just seems like his condition is so bad. Like there's stuff that I couldn't even comprehend, like that he's going through. So if he was able to kind of supervise some certain decisions, I would really enjoy that too. At least so that way the fans kind of have that satisfaction that, hey, it's coming from Togashi.
Yeah, it's important, especially if they go the route of like adding to the story after it finished, you know, some sort of continuation, which is one way they could go other than just the remake. But I think a remake is a much better idea considering his health and considering how it worked for Hunter x Hunter and it really worked for Full Metal Alchemist. Like I've met so many people who only know Full Metal Alchemist because of Brotherhood. Like I prefer the original, but what it does when you remake something like this is it opens up the option to watch both. Like the original wouldn't be erased; it would just add more fans to one of the best shonens of all time.
I agree, and a lot of people don't watch like a lot of old shonen because they're like, it doesn't look as good as modern shonen, and so I don't really feel like watching it because I feel like that's one of the reasons. Like not only because like Hunter x Hunter 1999 is old and kind of harder to access than 2011. I mean, I think that this would introduce a whole new group of fans to the show because I feel like if you're going to watch Hunter x Hunter, it's always going to be 2011 from my experience first, especially now. But once you watch that, maybe it gives you the curiosity to go back and watch the previous edition.
Yeah, it definitely would, especially if you really, really fall for a series you want, and you'll have those debates which always benefit which version's better. You have that with Hunter x Hunter because you got the kite stuff included in one and not in the other. Things like that make a big difference. And with Full Metal Alchemist, again, the original for me added more emotion, whereas Brotherhood had the like official ending. So there's benefits to both, and I think this would be a kind of a similar situation where people would decide which they preferred, especially if they went with a new voice acting crew, which I think would be a bold move because that dub is one of the best dubs of all time. Would you like to see a new voice cast, or would you rather they stick with the original?
I mean, if the originals still sound good and like if you put them there and it's like, man, they sound old and stuff, because like Vegeta's Japanese voice actor, like if you compare Z and Kai, it's night and day. And so if they were to get a new cast, that would be okay with me. Like as long as they have the right picks. It would take a bit of getting used to. But another thing too is because in the 90s and even earlier than that, whenever they would make anime for dubs, they would take a lot of liberties with it. And I think that the Yu Yu Hakusho dub has a lot of good one-liners and just a lot of memorable dialogue. I know that there are some people who really criticize that dub for not being super faithful to the manga, but I think it has its own personality that's worth watching.
Yeah, and that was like a byproduct of the time because no dub was going off a manga then. But nowadays, when they make them, they do a really good job in the dub world. So I think it will be interesting for me as a viewer to see it more close to the manga because I am like anime only with Yu Yu Hakusho. It's one of the only things that I am anime only on. So seeing a more faithful adaptation would really benefit me as a viewer as well.
Yeah, and I think also in the beginning, just so that way they're not doing the same story beats, maybe they could adapt some of the beginning parts of the Yu Yu Hakusho manga. I tried to Google some of that, and I could not find anything, no matter how hard I searched. And I don't know, maybe somebody in the comments will have read the Yu Yu Hakusho manga and they can say exactly whether or not this would be a good idea, but I think if they were to include some of those additional deeds that Yusuke did, which I hear is a lot more slice of life, I think it would make it to where the beginning part isn't super redundant, and they could probably just keep it in the same, like, maybe 4 or 5 episode span. I can't exactly remember off the top of my head, but that'd be something to do.
Yeah, they could really do that because there was that spell where the start of the series, you're just waiting for him to become a spirit detective. So adding more to it would definitely work. And him trying to get back to his body and things. Those are like maybe the slowest episodes of the series. And I was more looking towards like the ending as well. They could add a lot to the ending because I've told you about that OVA where they have Yusei working at a shop selling food, where he was eventually going to be running Kiko's family business. I think that was like a good ending for the character. They had Kuwabara attending college and ending up with Hei's sister. We had Hei's sister finding out that Hei's is her brother, like indirectly by giving him the jewelry to keep. So I thought like things like that were really good additions to the end. And they had Genkai's funeral and her leaving her property to the crew in order for them to use their home as a bridge between the human world and the demon world, so demons can like become accustomed to the human world. And I think that stuff could have really benefited the ending, although it ended a brilliant scene on the beach. But I thought this edition was like really good to kind of see where the characters end up, especially if they're going to go beyond the story and start adding more arcs where more threats comes, like we see in the movies and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the Three Kings arc with with the Three Kings just being like the toughest mortals ever, I think that that's perfect. But I agree with you. I think that maybe one of the reasons why they didn't do that is just because with like shonen anime, I don't know if they were like afraid to like delve into like slice of life stuff or whatnot, but I think that if they were to have a proper ending, I think at least it would make it more different than the original Yu Yu Hakusho anime if they were to remake it.
And it's got the option to obviously do more tournaments. Well, I presume that Yusei would probably end up strong enough to win one eventually, which would be interesting to see.
Yeah, or make a new Yu Yu Hakusho movie. That'd be also another good idea. So yeah, speaking of the Dark Tournament, or not speaking of the Dark Tournament, but speaking of tournaments, we gotta talk about one of the best tournaments in anime, the Dark Tournament. What do you think that they should alter in that? And do you think anything should be altered? Because I think that they should keep all of the main highlight matches and then maybe shorten that one round where they're fighting those three humans, because I thought that went on way too long.
Yeah, the Dark Tournament is so iconic because you had so much going on. You know, you had Toguro was this ultimate beast. I mean, that scene before the tournament when he shows up at the car park was just absolute magic. That's how you build like a shonen villain. Like Yusei was just in a state of like fear like you've never seen, and then you've got the training arc going on. You've got the history with Toguro and Genkai moving on her abilities to Yusei. Like there's nothing that I would change about that arc. I think it's magical. I just can't imagine seeing it with the new animation. Like the Yusei Toguro fight's so iconic. Can you imagine that in new animation? And here's a Fist of the Dragon that animated now would be sensational to see. Like, it's one of the best moves in all anime, isn't it? Can you imagine it with modern animation?
Oh yeah, that's where I think all the budget should be poured into. If they were to pour all the budget into something, put it into all of like the highlight matches of the Dark Tournament, because I love them so much in the original anime that to improve upon them seems kind of inconceivable, but if they were to do it, I actually have no doubt that they would be able to.
Yeah, I believe so too, and especially scenes like later on when we have Yusei's transformation. Like, I don't think that was like. I think they could have done a lot more with that scene when he first transforms, because I think that reveal could be really spiced up with like modern animation.
That one, whenever he removes like the spirit cuffs.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I agree with that, because I mean, I liked like the sound effects and all that, and just the visuals and like everybody's reactions, but I do agree. And speaking of which, now that I mentioned sounds and all that, with the soundtrack, do you think that that should be updated? Because I have seen some complaints that some songs appear way too much, and I can't help but agree. Like, I do have nostalgia, so I don't mind it, but there's a song called Monster Suit, and in the last minute of it, you hear that song played so much throughout the show, and I don't mind it, but I know others do whenever they watch the show and say, ugh, I can't stand this music.
Again, I would go down the route of a mixture. You've got the original songs there, you can play them at like the opportune times and then add something new. It would be wise to add some new things in there, because it even for us who have the nostalgia, we'd like to compare them and do the comparisons, and yeah, they can mix it up, add the old and the new. They've got to blend the best of both worlds for this to work. And speaking of transformations, even Koama's transformation in the Dark Tournament when we first see him as the demon, I think that could be like fantastic in animation as well, because transformation scenes have come on a long way in modern animation.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me in a way of like whenever Goku first turned Super Saiyan 3 in a way. I don't know if you kind of got that vibe too, because I mean, you watched Dragon Ball before you watched Yu Yu Hakusho, but that's what it kind of reminded me of.
Yeah, it did, and that was a long, a long transformation scene, the Super Saiyan 3 one when I first saw it.
Oh yeah, that's a different story though for another day. Yeah, so I guess like we could move on to like Chapter Black now. So I was going through my YouTube comments, and one of the things that really stood out to me was how one comment that got a lot of thumbs up said, like, oh, I don't really like the whole, like, sensui multiple personality stuff. Like, do you think that that should be changed? Because I've already said in that video I like it.
No, I don't think it should. I think it was very, very forward thinking. I think since we're having this backstory where he was a spirit detective and the things he saw were that horrific, he had a mental break. I think that was wrought so, so well. And I love the switching of Sensui, and they could do a lot with that, with the animation as well, where they could have him look slightly different when he's changing the personalities. I think that was really well done. And I think it was, like I say, it's modern thinking. This is like a real mental health issue, and the characters in the original were really like sympathetic about it, and they understood how it was his job that did this to him. So I think it's something that works really well and something that's really relevant, mental health. So I think Sensui is such a complex villain that he's probably the best villain to me in Yu Yu Hakusho in terms of writing. Although a lot of people would say it was Togaru, but I love Sensui. I think he's just the perfect kind of mirroring of how Yusei's life could have been if he was more alone. So I think it works perfectly well for these days, and probably it will be even better received, if anything.
Yeah, I mean, I think so too, but I mean, with like how like a lot of like Twitter users are, you know that some of them will be like, Sensui's not a representation of this mental disorder. He's giving us a bad name, or something like that. So, I mean but that's social media, doesn't count.
No, you can't change something like as iconic as that. And I think they could do a lot with the Chapter Black video itself. I said it would be great if they did this, to have that as like the trailer, you know, us get to watch a little bit of the Chapter Black, because I was very intrigued about seeing that. I guess it would be, if they modernised it, which we mentioned, they could set this today where it would be like on Netflix or something like that. And yeah, I think that would work a lot. And it's just an interesting arc. It's the worst deeds of humanity, and what seeing them does to somebody, I think, is just such an interesting concept. Changing it would be a mistake.
Yeah, I agree also. Like with the whole Chapter Black tape, like how you said it could be on Netflix, like maybe Itsuki has like an additional power where he can like control like TVs or something, and he he gets to those people with special powers, and whenever they're watching TV, he puts on the Chapter Black tape, and they try to change the channel, but they can't change it, and then so their eyes are just glued to that TV screen, just watching all the atrocities. And like you said, I'd like to see more of those atrocities. Like, I actually saw like the manga panel where they showed more of the Chapter Black tape, and it is pretty
Horrific. Like, I can't imagine how they could do it age limit wise to show more of it, but it would be interesting to see. And the whole concept of modernising it, do you think if they remade it, they should make it in today's world where the characters would have like mobile phones, like Twitter accounts? You says Twitter would be just the best thing in the world. Or should they stick it in the 90s setting?
I mean, I don't really see any benefit of doing that, because like with Hunter x Hunter, like I forget the manipulator on the Phantom Troops. On the Phantom Troop, I think his name's like Shalnark. I could be wrong though. I could be thinking of someone totally different. But in the 1999 version, he actually has like a more old like mobile phone, and in the 2011, his phone looks more like a smartphone, and so
yeah,
I didn't really find any. I wasn't like put off from that or anything like that.
Yeah, there's just things they could do, because you see, like you say, get the equipment which he like never ever uses. It comes in like that briefcase. I suppose they could have some more interesting gadgets and things for his spirit detective days, but he doesn't use them anyway. So I suppose it wouldn't add a lot to it.
Yeah, if they were to do the Artifacts of Darkness, they could totally do something that, like, they could make 90s stuff like like antiques. Like they could do like make stuff from the '90s anime, like antique.
That would be nice little Easter eggs, and there's an opportunity to do a lot of like Easter eggs and things like that. There's also like I say, incorporating them. There's like 2 movies, and I don't know if they should be incorporated into the main series. One of them was very hard to watch because it had a different voice acting cast, so that was strange to see. But there are additional stories that could be incorporated just to lengthen Yu Yu Hakusho out a little bit because it's not the longest series.
Yeah, I mean, my whole thing is like in between the Dark Tournament and the Chapter Black Arc. I think that would be a great place to put some new material. Like maybe Yusuke goes on like these mundane missions, and he's just like, man, these are just not hitting as hard and as good as like the Dark Tournament did. Like these are all easy in comparison to all those fights. And then, because like all we just saw is like, mundane life sucks.
Yeah, it would work because that's one of his biggest developments is to decide to leave to go to the Demon World after Sensui as well. So he really could explore how he struggles with life after facing threats like that, and especially with Kuwabara, because Kuwabara completely gets forgotten in the final arc. So I would like to see some more missions involving him, and especially the use of his sword, because as it develops, we don't really get to see it do anything after its one act.
Yeah, he cuts through Seaman's. Yep, the name. He cuts through Seaman's. Cuts through his territory, and then he cuts through that barrier which blocks Human World and Demon World. And then yeah, I mean it'd be nice to see Kuwabara in action more. Like, I don't know what he would do in the Three Kings arc. It just seems like he'd be so out of his element, being the only human out there. So I don't know how they could incorporate him.
But what I would do for that is they could easily have them. I know they say, there's like the peace between the demons and the humans stops the need for a spirit detective, but they could easily have some other threat appear on Earth that's like Kuwabara level, and they have to install him as a temporary spirit detective, because there's a lot of jokes throughout where Kuwabara is saying like, oh, I should be the spirit detective, you know, I'm better at this anyway. So they could have him have like a little mini arc.
That's brilliant.
With the people, yeah, while it goes on, and I think that would work.
Yeah, so with the Three Kings arc, I would say the big thing is they should have the war. I straight up think that they should have the war instead of doing the tournament, because that would really heavily contrast the two animes. And Togashi, that would be a very prime opportunity for him to give his notes. And I heard one person was going to die, and who do you think that was going to be, and why do you think it was Hiei?
Oh, really? They were going to kill off here? I suppose his character arc was complete, but I can't imagine how impactful that would be. You've thrown me then. I don't know if they should do that. It would be bold.
Yeah. I think that if they were to kill off Kurama, it would work, because he's already been killed off before and then he was reincarnated again. So that would work. And
he's picked his like human life as well. So, but I suppose it would be an interesting dilemma to kill him, like him favouring the human side, and him dying because of that would be an interesting way to end his arc.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing is everybody thinks that it's going to be Hiei, so that's why I said that.
Yeah, I can see it. He's sort of got like a happy ending. I think he's happy now. I don't know if I'd want to see him die after all the pain and misery he's endured.
Same. And then I guess, like, to close off the video, what ending songs were your favorite? Because I would say that they should definitely keep the first one. The one where it kind of looks like a disco at the beginning, like where like the light is like all panning back and forth in between all of them. And then I like the one where they're like walking through fire, and then there's that silhouette of Sensui like looking down at the heroes. Those are the two endings I would want remade the most.
Yeah, they're some really solid endings. Like, I think the animation of them is always interesting. But again, what I would do is like a half arc. Like, half the arc have the original, the other half of the arc have a new version. I think that's the perfect way to do it, because these songs are songs that stand the test of time. Like, I have the intro as my alarm, and I think they're just well written. So I can't see them just getting rid of them. I would keep all, but like again, mix the old and new.
Yeah, whenever your alarm goes off, you hear, "Thank you for waking me up."
Yeah, it's perfect.
Oh, that's amazing. That is perfect, yeah. So any last thoughts before we close this video?
No, I just think it's just such an interesting topic. I think it's something that should be done. That would add a lot of fandom to it because Yu Yu Hakusho's sort of been left alone. It doesn't get computer games. It doesn't get spin-off series, and I think this could really like open up those as a thing. Like if the anime came out and it was really popular, I would love to see like a modern game to play through the story, and that sort of thing, that the avenues that a new anime would open and have the potential to possibly get more manga. I know it probably wouldn't be from Togashi, he'd be like supervising, but still I would like to see what these characters are like as adults and where it goes with them. Like I just think it's just a silly thing not to make because it's gonna do well. I know we're getting the live action, but I am not the biggest fan of live action anime. I like the Rurouni Kenshin ones. I think they're like the perfect example of how to do live action anime. I think they were done really well. So maybe the Yu Yu Hakusho ones will be good, but I'm not confident. Are you like thinking the live action is going to be good? It's coming on Netflix soon.
I mean, I'll give it a shot just because I'm such a big fan of Yu Yu Hakusho. It's probably one of the first... Yeah, it's actually one of the first animes I've ever watched whenever I caught it on Adult Swim in the really early 2000s.
Yeah, so let's hope that does well, because that can possibly spark interest in another anime if it's really popular, but it could go the other way. It could be like the Death Note live actions and just like ruin Yu Yu Hakusho's reputation for the next generation.
Ugh, yeah, that's the worst case scenario. All we can do is keep our fingers crossed. But anyways, guys, make sure you subscribe to Dragon Ball Dad. I can't imagine that you're not already if you've been keeping up with his videos. And, I mean, we're looking forward to collaborating more now that I have the drive to do YouTube videos. So I hope you guys stick around for that. And with that, have a good day.